to the world. Subscribe now to the Hot 97 YouTube channel. It's Ebro in the Morning with Laura Stiles and Rosenberg.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Ebro. Laura had to take, I think, young baby Light to a pediatrics appointment. Rosenberg's on assignment with the WWE, but we have a colleague and a friend of mine, Mona Scott Young. I'm old enough to remember Mona when it was just Mona Scott before the Young.
Listen, a very, very, very long time ago.
We've been in this game a minute, Queen, and it's great to have you on the program today and talk about your episode of Uncensored. You're accustomed to, showcasing the lives of celebs through your franchise, Love and Hip Hop, as well as your other franchises. But now they want to talk about your life. How did that feel?
I know. I was just as surprised.
Well, were you really? I mean, you've been vilified and, as well as celebrated. So, listen, you get both sides. You've created a lot of financial opportunity and brands, through Love and Hip Hop, right? Cardi B came through. There's so many people that came through there.
It comes with the territory. I've learned to accept the good, the bad, the double-edged sword. That is what I do. Absolutely.
But how does it feel now when you go on this episode of Uncensored and you start to tell, your journey, your path? How does that feel now the cameras are on you?
Well, this wouldn't be the first time, right? I've hosted in the past, but really opening up and telling my story, it's nothing that I've ever shied away from. I mean, people, I do interviews all the time whenever someone asks me a question, because I definitely think that there's information and experiences, right? Listening to other people's stories, the journeys that they've had, and figuring out what you can extrapolate from that to kind of apply to your life. So I'm always happy to tell my story. I think to some extent, it's been an interesting one because I took a very unorthodox path. And I'm always happy to talk about it and answer any questions that people have.
So when did your love for television, or should I say even, filming things, because you started on the music management side?
Absolutely. Many years.
Say it again.
For many, many, many years. I mean, I did that for like 20-something years before I even moved into television.
So what sparked your interest in television? What happened? What was that, crossroads for you?
It was a combination of things, I think. I had been doing management for a very, very long time. You know this, with Violator and Chris and, all the acts that we had. And after a while, it started feeling like I really wasn't exploring kind of things that excited me anymore. I certainly still loved helping artists see themselves, accomplish everything that they set out to do, but it was really not an opportunity for me to explore my creative skills. And I did that show with Missy on UPN way, way back in the day, The Road to Stardom. And I really enjoyed the process of just having this idea, put pieces together and seeing it come to life. And I realized that this was a completely new area for me to explore, completely new landscape, things for me to learn. And I really also wanted to be able to expand with our artists as they wanted to move into film and television. I didn't want them to have to go and find those opportunities elsewhere.
And the VH1 Relationship, was that something you built that bridge yourself through just knowing people? How did that come to life?
It's interesting because we did a deal with Mike Ovitz, who a lot of people may or may not know, huge power player in Hollywood. He had this company, AMG, and we were kind of his urban division. And through that, I met a lot of network executives, did a bunch of what they call generals, when you just go in, meet people, talk about who you are, talk about what they want. And Jim Ackerman, who was an executive over at VH1, was one of the people that I met. So fast forward, when I left Violator and started Mona Me, Yandy had done a deal with Jim Ackerman for Jim Jones. And so the world kind of came full circle, where Jim Ackerman asked me to, take this project that they had sold, which was a project about Jim Jones, and try to figure out how to bring it to fruition, because they had been in development for a couple of years and the show had not made it to air. And I think the deal was expiring. So this was kind of the last shot opportunity to figure out that show.
From that show all the way through where we are now, when you look at the shows that you've put on television, the stars that you've made, there's tons of success stories there, right? But there's also tons of stories of people who didn't and weren't able to leverage the Love and Hip Hop brand or any of your shows to become something. When you look back at all of the chaos, the ups and downs and everything, is there something you would have done different, or something that maybe you could have zigged instead of zagged when you look back at it?
You know what? I really never look back at things and regret anything, mainly because you can't go back and change it. Okay. So what is the good in that exercise? You know what I'm saying? It's really more about looking back at things and looking at how maybe potentially to do them in a different way if there's another opportunity.
Yeah, like what did you, like, for instance, like what did you learn? Like, when you look back.
I mean, I learned that it's very, very difficult to be everything to everyone, right? There was a certain connection that was made with the talent early on. And as the franchise expanded and we got more and more talent, it was hard. It was difficult to be able to give myself in that way to every single person. And what happens is you have people feeling slighted or feeling like, oh, you're not writing for me as hard as you're writing for the next person. And they really don't understand that it's really, you know, we try as much as we can to be there both on camera and off. Because a lot of the things that, you know, they're experiencing are things that just don't stop because the cameras go off, right? So we're still getting those phone calls off hours, on weekends, middle of the night.
Right.
And it's really difficult. So maybe approaching that in a way that got them to understand a little bit more clearly that line. Right. But again, it's who I am. And I don't know that I could have done it any differently, even if I tried. It's the mentality that I had as a manager that I brought into what I do as a producer. Right. Really connecting with the talent and helping them to tell their stories, whether that's through music or on television.
Let's go back to the Violator days. You know, rest in peace, Chris Lighty.
Yes.
That was a tough day for all of us there at his house that day. Everybody was there when Chris was gone. And I don't know if you've ever publicly talked about losing Chris Lighty and just really what he meant to hip-hop and helping artists navigate through the label business and you guys working together. But I would love to maybe take a second for you to just acknowledge what he meant to so many artists completing projects. I know that was a big one, right? Chris was helping people complete projects, navigate the business, get their worth, come up with marketing plans. It was so much. And you as well that you guys were doing over at Violator to keep this hip hop culture thing healthy.
I mean, when I think about Chris, right, the thing that comes to mind is this was someone who was determined to win, determined to progress, determined to learn and build and grow. And anybody who was down with him went along for the ride, right? No man left behind. And I don't know that people realize how hard he fought to, you know, really legitimize and to position the talent in a way that they really were able to monetize their skills. He was so determined to see them win with everything it is that they were doing. So he fought so hard. He fought so hard in within the record labels, right? He was the guy that when he walked through the door, everybody was like, "Oh shoot, here comes Chris." Right. With the big renegotiation, you know, because it was so important for him that the talent be compensated, that they get what they deserve, that they get what they were supposed to get, that people didn't take advantage of them. And that's kind of what sticks for me because he was a fighter constantly and about everything that he cared about. And he cared about the artists, he cared about the music, he cared about seeing their businesses grow, their brands grow, and, you know, really seeing them be able to feed their families. Family was such an important part of who he was.
Well, and not only that, speaking of fighting, you and Chris in the office, him on one side of the office, you on the other side of the office.
Just yelling. You know what it is? We were like brother, sister.
Yeah, man.
I would say he's my work husband all the time. And my husband knew this because we started in that apartment in the Bronx, right? Before any of this, before the money, before the offices. So I knew him like, personally, we were friends, right? The relationships, we both had our, relationships, met our loved ones, got married.
Started families. Yeah, man.
Started families, exactly. So it went way beyond the business relationship. So, what people saw in the office was kind of the sum total of everything that we were.
It would be a war zone some days. I go in there to just check in. Yo, Mona, you seen Chris? Fuck that nigga. I ain't seen that nigga.
Yeah, but it was like nothing that I think we've seen since, right?
Yeah.
There wasn't something happening during that era, whether it was Bad Boy or, Flavor Unit, Violator. There was this sense of like, go hard, rock with each other, make it happen by any means necessary, that I just don't know that you see. It's so funny. I was talking to P and Coach K, and I was like, yeah, I see what they're building there. Right. And it's very reminiscent of that movement, for sure.
Well, and also, too, something that New York doesn't, I don't believe, it has, shout to Cinematic, there's a few people out there, in New York City doing it, but Violator was an office, and there were several offices, Bad Boy, Violator, some of the labels at the time, where young artists could go work.
Yeah.
They could have a cubicle. Mm-hmm. You could have an assistant, like think of how many times, and Mona, these stories where a young artist got their first assistant and, got a cubicle in somebody's office and somebody just let them work out of the office. It gave them a place to go. Right, to not be outside in the street and get in more trouble. It gave them the opportunity to be around a business environment.
And to understand how their business was run, right? That's a very big part of it. Like I say all the time to these young artists, like, educate yourselves, know your business, because there's no way you're going to know if someone is doing right by you if you don't even understand what they're supposed to be doing.
That's right.
So this was an opportunity for them to be around the business side, ask the questions, be exposed to a corporate culture of sorts. Because even though it was definitely the Wild Wild West, we really did our best to formalize the business and to give a sense of professionalism to the way the talent was represented so that they were respected and they were taken seriously. It's all about your representation, right? They're the face of who you are and how your business is handled. So we worked really hard to represent our clients properly.
So, and when you take that, what you guys were doing for young people and artists at Violator, and now we transition over to the Love and Hip Hop franchise. How many people that come through that Love and Hip Hop franchise ask you questions about this opportunity and really understand seizing this opportunity, that it is a show, right? Like, I see some people have gone into that Love and Hip Hop thing and they're like, yo, I'm here to put on a show. This is a reality show, but it's a soap opera. It's for entertainment, and I'm going to bring the entertainment value and leverage that into something else. How many people sit down with you?
I need you to give the speech, because that's exactly what it is. And sometimes you get people who understand that, right? And then other times I give them this little speech, right? It's all about thinking of this as a bed of coals. When you're walking across a bed of coals, you have to keep your sights on what it is you want to get to on the other side, right? Be focused about what you want out of this. Go into it knowing what you want out of this. This should not be an end destination. This should be a means to an end. There's an incredible opportunity when you understand the exchange. You're making entertainment. Yes, this entertainment is based on elements in your life, but these are elements that you're going to be living anyway, right? And that exchange is having this audience an opportunity to build your brand, whatever it is, whether it's music, your clothing line, whatever it is, right? There's this opportunity here to find your audience, to find your consumer base, but you have to do it all in perspective, and you have to be clear going into it so that you don't get caught up in the lights. You don't stop in the middle of the bed of coals. Because I'm like, if you get distracted, if you're not focused, if you don't stay the course, right, you're just going to get burnt in the process. And a lot of times, you know, they get it, but then there are the times that they really don't. And it becomes about like, oh, I'm a star. Look at, you know, social media, the paparazzi. And I'm like, okay. If this
You're missing the hustle. You're getting distracted. You're missing the hustle. So speaking of the hustle, Safaree and Erica Mena, they got married on the show.
Yes.
Are they back on the show? What's happening coming up? Like, where's this storyline going?
The crazy part, and I'll say it and I'll say it and I'll say it again. Things like people falling in love, getting married, having children. You can't make that stuff up. I cannot force people. These guys were what I considered a real love and hip hop love story, right? They started out on different cities. They connected, not even on the show, if you think about it, right? Got together, held their relationship from us because we ended up finding out about it when we went on the trip to Costa Rica, and Erica was there with Safaree, nothing to do with us. We didn't even know about it. And they got married and had a beautiful, beautiful baby and are experiencing, you know, I think some of the growing pains that happen when there isn't the period that I think is important when you're deciding to spend the rest of your life with somebody, right? We've spent a lot of time talking, both Erica and I and Safaree and I, and they're going through some growing pains. And I'm hoping that they can figure this out. They've got a beautiful baby girl that, you know, deserves to have both of her parents in her life. So hopefully, you know, no matter how things turn out with the two of them, they can figure it out at least for Maggie's sake.
And you've talked to them together or separately?
Together and separately. Yeah.
Recently.
Yeah, of course.
So you guys must be in negotiations because, you know, their breakup, you know, the marriage happening on the show, I guess the fighting happening on social media, it's got to play out.
But I talk to them beyond their presence on the show, beyond their deals and beyond being on the show. I mean, you know, a lot of times I sometimes play the role of mediator, believe it or not, you know, just talking them through like life. And, you know, I'm an old married lady. So a lot of times I'm like, guys, you know, there's got to be communication. There's got to be, you know, all the things that us old married folks say to the young ones, you know, coming into this. But we talk beyond just about them being on the show.
Got it. So you won't confirm nor deny this storyline playing out on the show is what you're dodging right now.
I'll say tune in Mondays at 8 p.m. only on VH1.
Always. So then Dr. Dre, so we can get a confirmation on Dr. Dre and Apryl coming on. There's been rumors. You know, if Dr. Dre comes outside for Love and Hip Hop, my mind will be blown.
Listen, both of our minds will be blown. Okay,
I'll be like, what? This pandemic really got people tripping out here. Yo.
Listen, I don't have a clue where, you know, that relationship stands. I don't know what's happening there.
And then Ray J, you know, another big relationship, Ray J and Princess.
Yep.
They've decided to end divorce proceedings, so they're working it out. Now, is that another couple that you mediate and they reach out to you? Is that relationship?
Not as much, right? Because Ray J is Ray J. Ray J gonna do what Ray J gonna do. You know, Princess and I, of course, have spoken in the past, and they're another couple that I feel like, you know, have a lot of love for each other. They have children, so they're on this path to, I think, figuring out where things stand and figuring out, you know, how they want to move. But I think they're always going to be friends, those two. I think no matter what happens within their marriage, they, you know, have a family that they both love. And I think
they have two kids together, right? They have two children together.
They have two children, yep. I think they're always going to be able to coexist.
Speaking of, you know, whether it's Busta Rhymes, Missy Elliott, you know, and now that I'm sitting here talking to you about these individuals on Love and Hip Hop, there's a common theme here of these these human beings who are also personalities, characters. Have you talk about that, finding a storyline for an artist, a creative, a character that's entertaining and compelling for the audience? Because I guess that's the essence of this love and hip hop thing a little bit too, is you figuring out, and you and your team figuring out what is interesting about an individual that could also be entertaining, whether it be through music or through television, correct?
Yeah. And it's interesting that, because I have an aversion personally to calling them characters, right? Because I think they all have
that removes the humanity from it a little bit.
They're cast members, and they're, people, believe it or not. And again, I keep saying this, right? There are elements, I think, in most people's lives that you can supersize. You can create, elements around to make it, more glamorous or whatever. But
you can exaggerate it. You can exaggerate it.
It's got to come from a place of truth, right? You're not going to take somebody and completely just make something up about their lives. First of all, I can't imagine anyone just deciding to go along with that. What does that say about the person? So that's when people say like, oh, this is completely made up. I'm just like, well, by saying that, you're actually like taking away from that person that they would just come onto a show and do something that's completely, false and fabricated, right?
And some people might for the money.
I don't know. I don't know. I've yet to come across somebody that's like, yeah, make me look crazy and I'll do it for the money. Right. Sometimes they don't like the way things turn out. They don't like the way, what I'm saying, they end up looking, but they certainly never went into it knowing that it was not based on something that was happening in their lives, right? They may not have liked the way it turned out. Be very clear about that. But it wasn't something that was fabricated, made up, pulled out of the air. So a lot of times it's just about talking to them, right? You're going to hear the stories, you're going to hear, and then a lot of times they'll offer things up, because you have to understand, we won't know the stuff unless they tell it to us. And then you're going like, okay, is this relatable? Is this something that people want to know, they want to see? Is this something that, has legs in terms of being a story that has a beginning, middle, and end? Because that's what, we do with Love and Hip Hop, is tell those stories in a way that it's narrative, right? But I think, what we're going to see is that there's been a lot of change in the world. There's been a lot of change in the kinds of stories that I think, people are interested in seeing now. And just everything from, the state of the world to the pandemic and the restrictions with the way that we're able to, navigate and move around, will lead to a refresh, if you will, of, the franchise, the stories. I think people will see that, it's evolved, and the stories that are reflected are in line with where people's lives are right now.
Do you and your team actively identify, like, do you guys have like a list of individuals that you feel or that you see in social media that might be interesting? You go out and find, or does it come to you?
It's a combination of both. There's, a casting team that is casting all of the cities, and it's everything from, who's popping on social media to word of mouth, 6 degrees of separation. A lot of times people will reach out, yo, Mona, I'm telling you, I know this person, and then I'll forward it on to the casting team. But and sometimes it's just the cast members themselves saying, this is somebody that I'm going through this with, or somebody that I know, and it just becomes that, again, degrees of separation thing.
Mona Scott Young, who will be on TV1's Uncensored. When does this episode air? It's Sunday. This Sunday, March 28th.
Airs Sunday the 28th, absolutely, on TV1. I'm very excited, and it's just me sharing my experience.
Now, here's the real question.
What's that, sir?
Did you give TV1 the final edit, or did you keep the final edit power?
It's so funny because they were amazing to work with. They allowed me an opportunity to be like, ooh, that's not an attractive picture. Can we swap out this one instead? No, they were great to work with. I really appreciate the team over there, Thank you so much for even giving me this platform and an opportunity to tell my story. Yeah, hopefully people get a little nugget, a little something that inspires them.
There's two items that I want to cover before we wrap. One is your health journey, which you've become a healthy person and weight loss, and you've always kind of maintained that you're looking amazing, skin is glowing smooth, everything is rocking. You know what I mean? For people out there on that health journey, which you've done some public about it. Talk about where you are in your health journey and staying healthy right now.
I'll tell you, it's been hard, right? And for me, the health journey recently has been more about mental health. Because we're all in quarantine, everybody's going to gain that quarantine 15 because it's hard to, get out as often and get that exercise. But what I've been stressing to folks, because it's something that I dealt with personally, is making sure that, you're taking care of yourself and not allowing the anxiety and the uncertainty and the stress to create undue pressure, to let it out, to talk to people, to give yourself a break. Our senses have been assaulted, right? Everything from the horrible, horrible visuals that we've been exposed to on social media, people dying, getting killed, the racial tensions, the mistreatment. It's really taken a toll that I think we have a tendency to discount and to, think that it's not really impacting us in ways that I think we need to pay attention to. The uncertainty for a lot of people with their finances, what's happening with the job market. Never mind, you can't even think about going outside without worrying if you're going to contract a virus that could kill you. All of that is stressful. And, I've had my own moments where just the pressures of it all have been such that I kept saying, I can do this, I can handle it, I could deal with it. And then had to allow myself a moment to just break down, to cry, to let it out, because it's a lot. And I think we just need to acknowledge that, to give ourselves a break and to pay attention to our mental health.
And people may or may not know, but are you still on the board of the Haitian Roundtable?
Absolutely. The Haitian Roundtable, and proud Haitian American.
There is a lot of, I guess, unrest again in Haiti. Due to the people wanting a fair election, I believe, and, having a president that has now taken billions of dollars out of the economy and used in ways that it feels like the voting public is not in favor of.
I mean, listen, unfortunately, that has been the consistent and constant history of Haiti. And it's a shame because this country has not been able to find its way to real, honest leadership, to, really taking advantage. I think most people are still trying to figure out what happened to all that money after the earthquake, right?
That's right.
It's
I'm still stuck in the early 1900s when America came and took the gold. What happened with the gold?
It's sad. It's disheartening. You wonder how and when will things ever change? And, there are tons of Haitian Americans who are making their way back to Haiti and trying to affect change, but it's not an easy process. It's nothing that's going to happen in, the foreseeable future. But what's happening now that we are seeing is that the people are coming together and the people are revolting and they're rebelling. And we've seen historically what happens when Haitians rise up and decide that they've had enough of something.
Is there a conversation that you're a part of and that those of us that have Haitian loved ones and people that we care about that we can support? Like, what's the messaging from here in America? What could help? And what, you know what I mean? Because I think oftentimes that's kind of the disconnect is like as people who aren't there and you're saying, hey, this is going on in Haiti, it feels like you're just once again reporting on people that you love, a culture that you love, but you don't know, here we are again, and you don't even know what to say or what actually is the thing that's going to turn this in the right direction.
I mean, listen, I'll say honestly, I'm probably not the most well-versed person to figure out what are the steps that need to be taken, but there's so many organizations, the Haitian Roundtable being one, that provides that kind of information, that has forums for this dialogue and points people to the right resources. And, my involvement has really been about lending my voice, lending my platform, being part of, changing the images of Haitians and Haitian Americans abroad, just so that people can see them as people and see them, in a different light, in the hopes that all of the, things that need to happen to turn the tide there can hopefully one day come to fruition. So please check out the HaitianRoundtable.org and see.
My thing always is we owe Haiti so much as Black people, as the Black diaspora, right? Yeah. We owe Haiti so much. The first free Black nation on planet Earth, right? And at every turn, this nation has been punished by European Western institutions, right? Using military to steal resources and gold, economic embargoes, placing in leadership, puppet leadership that wants to do harm to the nation. There's just so many reasons for us to rise up.
Racism, right? And the lens and the infrastructure that exists that is systematically designed to keep us down. Imagine what has been orchestrated around a nation that had the first uprising, that actually, lent themselves to helping other countries fight oppression and fight, slavery. So there has been long held the belief that all of this is by design. That's all right. Of this is intentional. All of this is.
Well, it's like it's a reminder. It's
You will never ever, right? Rise up. You will never prosper. You will never be successful. You will never thrive. And we've seen just one thing after another, one regime, whether it be the U.S. or in other countries, come in and, pillage the country and rape the country of its natural resources. So it's shameful. It's again, disheartening. It's sad. It's heartbreaking. But it's something that, hopefully is not going to be forever, and that there will be a day when there will be some real leadership in Haiti and there will be a change in the way that, the country is run.
Well, I just wanted to acknowledge what was going on in Haiti. You are somebody, once again, as a board member of the Haitian Roundtable. I think the diaspora, the collective diaspora, and the pressures that we can put, whether it be on the government here in America, the diaspora in France, the diaspora in the UK, and even the rest of the Caribbean having a little bit more sovereignty and getting their economic legs up under them, can figure out a way to support Haiti and figure out a way to help the people get what they need and what they deserve.
Yeah, but the problem's twofold. What happens when that help comes in, right?
Right.
The leadership, the infrastructure that's in place is the problem as well. So it's almost like it has to start from within in order to, maximize and receive help from the outside.
That's facts. Mona Scott Young. It's great to see you, loved one.
Thank you, darling. It's wonderful to see you too, always.
Congrats on all your success. And once again, Uncensored airs on Sunday, March 28, 10 p.m. on TV1. Go look for it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mona, I love you, kid.
Thank you, babe.